Hello, guys. Welcome to another SourceCast. Sorry that it's been about a month since the last recording, but because of the holidays and other life obligations, we weren't able to deliver one quite as quickly. But in order to make up for that, we have two special guests joining me today. I'm Push Dustin, of course, and joining me is Nintendon, or
Hello,
Don
everybody.
Koopman.
Or Dan
He's
Koopman.
a writer
Or
for...
the Koopster.
Or
Or
Don
D
Koopman.
Koops. Or Koops from Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door.
How many nicknames do you have?
About 5.
Oh, wow.
But Koops is the one I'm most familiar with around people that I know. But anyway, yeah. Nice to be here.
Okay, and then also Ollie Jameson.
Hey.
And he's the owner for Minus World. And so today we are going to talk about the Nintendo Switch. And so Ollie and Don both got a chance to have hands-on experience with the Switch in various events in Europe. And so let's start off with Don. What do you think about your general impression of the Switch?
I really like the hardware. I think every aspect of the hardware is something that I'm really going to enjoy. The handheld mode, the screen on the actual unit was way better than I was expecting. It looks really sharp, and playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on it was fantastic. Also, Breath of the Wild looked really good. Then connected to the television, we have a really sharp image. Especially I noticed with Breath of the Wild. Well, it's not a full 1080p. It's still solid 900p with 60 frames per second, which looks beautiful. And the controllers itself are also like really great. The Joy-Cons have a lot of good built-in stuff into it. I think that the Joy-Cons in particular, with the HD Rumble stuff, which we'll talk about pretty much soon enough, and the motion sensing that's in that controller feel really nice. And there's a solid array of buttons. I'm not sure if you give somebody else the right Joy-Con, if that will be as comfortable, because the control stick is in the middle, which I think there's where it falters, or you have to buy a second L Joy-Con. That's also a very real possibility. But yeah, it's in general, I had a good time with exploring all of the games that use that, so ARMS and 1-2-Switch. And then finally, there was the Pro Controller, and the Pro Controller is something that I really, really love. It feels way nice to wrap your hands around. Then the Wii U one, it feels less sharp, it feels really smooth into the hands, and all the buttons have a really good feel to them. And it also has all the features that you want from the Joy-Cons too. So that's also the HD Rumble, the motion sensing, and the NFC reader writer. So it feels like a really complete alternative controller.
Okay. And how about you, Ollie?
Yeah, I think my thoughts are quite similar to Dan. I think it felt like a really good piece of kit. There's obviously a lot of really impressive tech packed into there, and it felt physically very comfortable. Sticks had definitely a bit more resistance than I think we're used to coming off the Wii U, and the buttons felt very firm. Portable mode worked great from what I saw. Zelda and Mario Kart looked very sharp. So I think, as the main kind of feature of the console, I think that's going to be very appealing. But also the Joy-Con had a lot of really impressive tech in them. I think you'd be a fool to sleep on them because, the way they were shown off showed a lot of promise. So it'll just be interesting to see if developers make use of all the technology that Nintendo's kind of offered them. I did have slightly different opinions on the Pro Controller, though. I thought, whilst the sticks and the buttons and everything felt good, very similar to the Joy-Con, I thought the actual finish on it was a little bit rubbery. It definitely felt weightier than the one on the Wii U. It definitely felt kind of sturdier. But I'm not sure. I think looking at it from a kind of aesthetic point of view, it's a matter of opinion. It wasn't my favorite kind of traditional controller Nintendo have put out, that's for sure. But probably need to spend some more time with it,
Yeah. You can't really disagree that it was more full featured than the Pro Controller on Wii U.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, having all the kind of the NFC and the gyro in there is great because really, you could use that as your main controller if you're playing at home, and that's kind of what they showed off when I played Zelda. It was with the Pro Controller. You want to get up and walk off somewhere else, you just pick up the Switch with the Joy-Con attached. So you could probably use that full time as your kind of controller if that's what you prefer. So
I absolutely love that. Use that controller with Splatoon 2. It felt really natural, especially since you really can just simply move that Pro Controller a little bit and have that same control you had with the gamepad.
Yeah, that's true. The way they've implemented the gyro was really good.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were worried about Splatoon transitioning to a non Wii U gamepad type of game because of the map being such an essential function or having a lot of a function in the match. But you guys didn't really have a problem with using I guess they changed a couple of things, right?
Yeah,
They
I think the major difference here is that jumping is now B and that X brings up your map, and it's more difficult to get used to. But what I think is useful on that map now is that you can simply press the X button and view everything on a glance. It is harder to make the jump to another player because you have to physically move yourself to that position and then press the A button. But for a glance sort of view, for knowing where your team stands, I think transferring the map to the X button is actually not a bad idea.
I thought it was quite fast. I didn't find that it was kind of, well, it's a bit more with super jumping on the gamepad. You actually had to physically look down, and you had to make a motion to press it, which meant taking your hands off the rest of the controls. But you can just bring that map up with one button now. So.
Yeah. But also, I still think there's pretty much risk involved because when you look at the map, you leave yourself completely open for an attack.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of trade-off with the ability because it gives you this big kind of mobility option, and then that's it. It's a kind of risk-reward, on a small scale.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so is there any games in particular that really stood out to you, Don?
Okay, there's a bunch of games actually that really stood out to me. I think that the one that I want to bring up is Snipper Clips. Snipper Clips is such a fun little puzzle game where you both hold a Joy-Con like an NES controller and just solve puzzles together. You can tilt your characters around, you try to line up to one another to cut away at each other and then solve puzzles with that. For example, the early puzzles, you have to climb a platform to push a switch, and the other player will have to grab like a basketball. Then you have to work together to get a basketball into the hoop at the other side of the puzzle, which it was simple in its concept, but it really felt good in execution because you really have to work together and communicate with one another, which I think is a perfect co-op game.
Yeah, it looks a lot of fun. Like I was watching the Treehouse stream, and I kind of had a blast just watching it.
Yeah, apparently you can play it up to 4 people. I don't know how that would change the dynamic of the game, but I think if you play with 2 people, it feels really perfect. Another game that I was more impressed by than I thought I would was ARMS. I really like what they showed of ARMS. Especially how you can play it with regular controls, but I really like what they did with how you hold Joy-Cons, just dynamically in front of you. Then you punch and then pull them both forward to grab you, and then throw punches. Then you hold them close to one another. Then you fend. There's a lot of variables there that I think are really cool. And especially how you throw that shot and which button you hold. You can do different types of moves. You can dodge and you can jump. So there are a lot of good stuff there. My only worry with that game is that they have only showed like one basic mode, and they definitely need to show more. But the weapons, the characters that they show, the environments look really fun and cool.
Yeah, and Ollie, you got a chance to play ARMS too.
I did. ARMS was actually probably, surprisingly, it was my favorite game that I played there. I think it's got a lot of potential. I really like how they implemented the motion controls. I thought that they felt kind of intuitive and responsive. It was one of these games where you pick up the Joy-Con and you just know exactly what to do. And I think a part of that comes in the fact that you do punch to punch in this game. Which sounds kind of obvious, but it kind of, it's got appealing visuals. The character designs are excellent, and I think with the right amount of content, like Dan was saying, extra modes, extra characters, stages, and the arms themselves, I think they could potentially have another Splatoon on their hands. And it's been quite sad to see that people seem to be kind of underestimating the game's value and saying, oh, this isn't worthy of being a full retail game. But I think there is a level of depth there. I'm not expecting it to become the next Smash Bros. And I think that will partially be because I don't see fans accepting it in that way. But I think I don't like the attitude of kind of underestimating it. And we got this when Splatoon was first announced. It's a brand new IP. It's from the team who worked on Mario Kart 8. They've made an excellent game there. So I think there's a lot of promise in ARMS. I'm kind of confident that with the right push and the right content, that could be a really, really good one to watch.
Yeah, I also think it is because of the Joy-Cons that game succeeds. Because
definitely.
Where the Joy-Cons differ than the remote was made for pointing. It could definitely do other stuff, that's for sure. But the Joy-Cons are made for motion sensing, similar how you would see like an HTC Vive, for example, where you can freely move about without looking directly at the screen, and that's how they, for example, build upon with 1-2-Switch, where they have different minigames where you actually don't really look at the television, just do the task at hand. And I think that's a way smarter way of handling motion control. I think just constantly looking at the screen and focusing on how you move together in conjunction with the screen had its merit back in 2006, but they had to evolve that, and I think they did it in a really sharp way.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you can kind of move video games a little bit off the TV, then you can kind of make it a little bit more immersive or a little bit more fun for people.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes more social. I think that's what 1-2-Switch really is. It's a very, very social experience. And they've talked about the importance of kind of looking your opponent in the eye and actually interacting with the physical space around you, which the Wii tried to do and to an extent did very well. But this is a lot more focused on what you're doing. And, like Dan said, it's focused on what you're doing rather than how you're interacting with what's on the screen. And I think that's something the Joy-Con do very well.
Yeah. And again, motion sensing is the future, and I definitely see how they use it in the VR space, and I think using it in the Joy-Cons make a whole lot of sense. But it's how 1-2-Switch uses it, because we're talking about 1-2-Switch anyway, is using different aspects of that Joy-Con. And one of the games that I really liked was Safecrack, where you have to find 3 different weak spots in a lock and then unlock it. And every individual spot on that lock has a different haptic feedback to them, which makes that task really engaging and interesting. And other stuff like, for example, ball count, which I think is not all that fantastic, still is elevated a little bit by just sensing how many balls there are in the Joy-Con by having that real haptic feedback there. We have to see how that full game progresses, because I would love to see more games like Ball Count and Safecrack, but it also has games like the Shootout game, which I think after playing it a round or two, I think I would be good.
Yeah,
I think I have to. I disagree slightly with the Safecrack. I played Safecrack. That was one of the games from 1-2-Switch I tried, and I felt that whilst it did use that technology and you got that feedback, and that was a good feeling, and it's kind of a new feeling as well, because obviously this HD rumble hasn't really been implemented in games before. I think my issue with that, and also with some of the other games of 1-2-Switch like Milk, is there's actually a kind of physical lack of substance to what you're doing. So you turn your hand to crack the safe, and you're waiting to feel for this feedback. But beyond that, the interaction is at a minimum, and that's one of the games where really you're not interacting with your partner so much. It doesn't have that social aspect. The motions are very simple. And I think this kind of sums up my feelings on the whole game, in that it really does feel like a tech demo, and it shows off the Joy-Con brilliantly. But I kind of have some qualms about whether there'll be enough content and enough substance across all of the mini games to actually, make it worthwhile of being a full retail release, which is something a lot of people have been saying.
For me, it's kind of 50-50. I think 3 of the games were really interesting, so Ball Count, Safecrack, and Copy Moves. I think that the other
that was a good one. I thought that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. The other 3 were one motion games. So Milk, Shootout, and the other game that I totally don't remember. Oh yeah, Samurai Training. Those games are really one trick ponies, and I think after a round or 2, you're definitely done with them. And I think that even if it's tech demos, they need to develop those tech demos slightly more. And I think those other 3 games actually gave a sense of still being entertaining after maybe 3-4 rounds.
Yeah, and I think a lot of to some extent, a game like, say, the Shootout game, the fun from that will come from who you're playing it with. It'll come from your partner, more so than what the game's offering. It's like the milk, for example. It's as humiliating and hilarious as it looks, and and you're there, you're playing it, you're laughing, but when you really boil it down to it, all you're doing is moving your hand up and down. You could do that without a game.
Yeah, I think the best thing to honestly come out of Milk is the video of me looking the demonstrator of Nintendo completely fully in the eye and just milking the shit out of the Joy-Con.
Yeah, I actually saved that GIF for a later date.
What date's that?
Oh my god!
When are you going to use that?
It's gonna come up sometime in conversation. I don't know when.
When I finished playing it, the woman there who was the attendant, she said to me, "Oh, what did you make of that?" And all I could think to say was, "Oh, I'm not going to forget this in a hurry."
So, one of the things that people have been harping Nintendo about is the fact that 1-2 Switch isn't a pack-in title. Do you think it has enough content to be a standalone title?
It has the right ideas. I don't know if it is the full-fledged game that it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the launch lineup needed one more Nintendo title, and it should have likely, in my eyes, been Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But it's Nintendo's decision. We can't really do anything about that. I would have liked 1-2 Switch more as a pack-in title. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think even if they don't include it as a pack-in title, then they could at least offer some of those mini games as downloadables.
Yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose of that game, though.
Yeah,
I actually kind of looking at it, and I think that talking about the content, about whether there's enough content for it to be a retail release, it's less about the physical amount of content. They could add, the number that's been kicking around is 20 mini games, which is quite a lot.
It's above 20, they said.
Yeah, I think that's that's a fair amount, but it's more about the depth, and it's about what those mini games involve. And what they do, how they make use of the hardware. And my issue with the package as a whole is, whilst I don't deny the quality that's gone and the concept and the ideas that's gone into making that, and I don't deny that the people who made it are kind of skilled game designers, and I don't deny that it makes great use of the Switch hardware as well. I feel that it thoroughly is a tech demo, more so than it is a game, and I don't even know if it would be worth printing as a pack-in. I think it should actually be it should be on the system as a kind of preloaded piece of software, similar to how Face Raiders was on the 3DS, the HAL Laboratory kind of AR shooting game.
To be fair, Nintendo has something against putting back in titles as something for their home systems. Look back at Wii and Wii U.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, with Nintendo Land on the Wii U, it was that you were paying a premium for that. You had to, go out of your way to get the kind of higher grade bundle. But I think it's more the nature of what the game is, rather than it being a pack-in. Rather than it saying, all this is a mini game collection, it should be free. I don't think that's right, and I think that's devaluing the experience. It's not a matter of its worth; it's a matter of what it is. And I just really thoroughly feel that it kind of.
What I also feel is that it depends on the kind of player that you are. Like,
that's true.
If you're a very social player and you play a lot of games with friends, I think you can get a lot of value out of this, even if it's a glorified tech demo. If you are playing it solely to play video games on your own, I don't think you will pick this up.
No, it's a multiplayer title kind of through and through. And I think, it could be a hit at parties. If you're pissed, it'll be excellent. Think of the drinking games that could come from 1-2 Switch. But I think... there are players who are going to look at the launch lineup for the Switch and say, "Okay, Zelda's all I need." There are people who they like Nintendo and they buy their consoles to play Mario and Zelda, and this might not be an experience for them. But there is an audience for these kind of games.
Yeah. One funny criticism I saw a lot online is, how would you bring it to parties? Because if you put it just with the tablet, you can barely hear it. Ladies and gentlemen. It is 2017. There's something called speakers, portable speakers, where you plug in a line-in thing into it. It's not that hard to see, everybody.
Or you could just bring the dock and Just connect it to a TV.
I mean, you almost don't even really need the sound for a lot of the games. I mean, it's very minimal kind of cues, but I mean, if you've got other people watching, that'll be, their response will be, I think even that's another thing about being a social game is if you're playing with a group of people, a lot of the fun of that game is going to come from the way you interact with your partner and the way people around you respond to those games. Milk isn't as funny if there aren't a group of people around you kind of laughing at you doing it. And that's the kind of truth of it.
But it's also, I think it's funny that not being able to listen to sound is a criticism in a world where portable speakers everywhere exist.
That's true.
Speaking of which, how is the sound actually coming from the Switch itself?
It seems pretty okay. Yeah, I got to plug in the headphones to it, and without headphones, and I feel the sound is good enough.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, that's something that I really didn't I didn't really notice. I just wasn't really focusing on it, I suppose. But, obviously there's some kind of headphone in, which is good. That's what you're probably going to want to be doing if you're taking it outside.
Well, you can also use Bluetooth. So
okay, yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, which I always do with the Vita as well, because it's way easier for traveling and everything. So I will definitely do that with the Switch as well if possible. But I just plugged my headphones in while playing some Mario Kart on the handheld screen, and it felt really good.
Yeah. How about in a tabletop mode, though? I was saying, like, if you're trying to actually use it in parties or something.
It's hard to say, really. I think that the sound that comes out of it is good for what it is in handheld mode. For tabletop mode, it's kind of hard to say. It also depends on the type of get-together that you actually are experiencing at that moment.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was like an iPhone max level of volume.
Oh, no, it's definitely better than... Well, it depends on the kind of iPhone you actually are talking about, but it's definitely better than my iPhone, for sure.
I think the trick is you've got to follow Nintendo's example from that first launch trailer and only take it to rooftop parties where it's a bit more open, you can hear the sound more clearly. That's what they wanted you to do. That's what they're trying to communicate.
Well, Karen always brings her Switch on. Like, Karen, man. What the frick is Karen doing every single time at those
she just
parties?
wants to play Mario and that's it,
Yeah, I like how she just looks at the girl like, you're going to play with me, right?
They can't say no to her. They don't want to hurt her feelings.
So how do you think Nintendo actually handled the presentation? Do you think they did a good job? Do you think they delivered the message clearly?
I think they did an 8 out of 10 job. And I say this for a couple of reasons, right? I think that the content they showed was good. I think that some of the stuff surrounding it could have been snappier. Especially if you look at the ARMS and the 1-to-Switch segments, I felt that they dragged on a bit too long. And I felt that they could have spent more time on different games. And looking back at the whole entire presentation, I've watched it 2-3 times now. I think that the entire EA section also kind of feels out of place and a bit too long in the teeth. Well, I can also say that because I don't really trust EA with doing FIFA right on the Nintendo system, but that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Yeah, no, I think EA's appearance definitely, people have talked about the energy of the presentation. Obviously, it was very, very Nintendo. They had their gags. They had the Splatoon doctor, doing his 2 pose.
I think the star of the show was Kazumi-san.
Definitely.
He did great visual gags with the Joy-Cons and everything surrounding it. And I think he has the right ideas where the system is heading.
That I think he could actually, that could be the kind of future Nintendo Direct host, possibly. I've got some loyalties to Shibata for Europe. I like what he does.
For sure.
But I think, people were talking about the energy, and obviously they tried to do these gags and these kind of, visual gags and the kind of quirkiness of it you'd expect from Nintendo. And some people say that a lot of the energy was lost in the translation. I think that's true. People gave the guy who translated Suda 51 a really hard time, but I think that's just, it's just a mistake.
This just sounds an offshoot, but did you guys see that there was a listing almost a day after that presentation for a new new translator?
There's no way they sacked that guy so quickly. Not for one mistake. I got very much doubt that's what happened. I hope I'm not wrong.
I think rip translator guy.
Oh dear, poor guy. But
I mean, reading over the list of responsibilities, it sounds like something that that would be in line with what the translator was supposed to do,
Really?
because it's
Oh,
like
dear.
more about more interagency communication
Yeah.
instead of actual game translation.
But yeah,
Okay.
it was really hard. Like
Yeah.
Suda was also, I have felt, going completely off script, so the guy was really thrown off as well. So
Yeah.
those four like nuggets I have against it, but in general, I still had a good time watching it, and it started with a freaking Click remix, for crying out loud.
And the light show.
Yeah, and the
All
light
the
show.
lasers. The DJ they had is I can't remember his name, but he's actually worked on a few games himself. He did. I'm getting really specific with the niche game stuff now. He did some arrangements for the CD release of the soundtrack for LSD Dream Emulator, the kind of trippy PS1 game. So he's actually got a bit of gaming history. That's an interesting fact for you.
I actually have a full archive of that stream in his session on my computer.
Okay, yeah, that's these are the weird little things we need to preserve. There you go. But yeah, if I could just really quickly go back to my point about the kind of energy, I found that this is maybe a bit of a kind of nasty personal criticism here, but the second the EA guy stepped up on the stage, bam, that was it. All the energy even sucked out of the room as he told us how he'd named his son. He'd given his son the middle name Luigi in the most kind of stony faced way possible. And I kind of, I don't know, maybe that was a kind of a bizarre metaphor for the kind of Western presence at the presentation. But I think it was all summed up where I saw a photo. I don't know if you're able to link to it in the show notes over from a Japanese some kind of gaming kind of news website, news agency, and they'd taken a photo of the EA guy at the event, and he looked like he was dying on the inside. He couldn't even crack a smile for being photographed at point blank range. So I maybe do I feel bad for him? I don't know.
No, I don't feel bad for the EA guy. he's actual big top guy at EA, so he needs to handle this stuff way better than he actually did.
It's a shame because I'd love a great FIFA on this console. I think this is actually it'd be really well suited for the multiplayer.
Ali, let's be real here with one another. It's not going to be a great FIFA.
All right, well, I'm praying for Mario Strikers Charged or Inazuma 11 instead then.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, they made this whole charade back with the Wii U launch and say from now there's going to be a great version of FIFA. But look how that turned out. It was a game with older physics and barely any new content was from the current version's game.
I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I think I'm prepared for I'm prepared for the worst when it comes to the kind of Western third-party stuff, which shouldn't really be the way it is. I
am on board with still playing a FIFA game on a Nintendo system. It's like the last couple of years on 3DS and Wii specifically, they only done those legacy editions, which were basically the same content,
poor show,
with only new kits for the characters or the new players within a team. And I don't want to give EA like the benefit of the doubt because that's not a good thing to do. But I'm also being realistic and saying this is EA, they have done this before. They only made one good game on Wii U, which was Most Wanted U.
Yeah, well, they'll probably can't rule out them doing that again. Hopefully, we'll get one good game off of them.
We'll see. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see how long they actually stick around.
I was actually surprised at the lack of Ubisoft there. I thought they would have had someone in that presentation, considering they've been a very vocal supporter of Nintendo. Both at the beginning of the Wii U and early on for the Switch.
That's also a really good point. I think that Ubisoft being there was more deserved than EA.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ubisoft was there until the very end, maybe with only Just Dance, but they were there until the very end of Wii U. And that you can't say that of EA, honestly.
They're still releasing games on the Wii, so
yeah.
They're going where the money is.
They still released a 3DS game about 7 months ago.
They when it comes to kind of Western third party support on Nintendo, they've definitely fallen short. They fell short with the Wii U, and I think a lot of people are probably still kind of sour about what happened with Rayman and the general kind of launch day kind of ports and stuff like that. And I think maybe that was more EA's doing, but. They have stuck by Nintendo to an extent. They haven't completely dismissed them the way EA did. So I'm hopeful that maybe they'll well, I think it'll be dependent on whether or not the Switch is a success, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. I completely agree with you guys about Ubisoft and EA. Like when EA was on the stage, it was very awkward. Especially seeing Bill translate into Japanese. That was a very first time for me.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I watched the presentation both in Japanese and English, and I have to say that the English version definitely missed out on a lot of the energy that the Japanese version had. And I agree with Dan that the ARMS segment, the trailer for 1-2 Switch and the ARMS trailer went on for too long. It should have been a little bit sharper.
The 1-2 Switch section
but-
reminded me a little bit of when they announced Nintendo Land at the end of E3 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
No one just had any
when
clue
they were
what was
on the
going
train.
Well, to be fair, they spent more time on Nintendo Land during that E3 presentation. I was there. I remember it as clear as day. They spent a good 17 minutes solely on Nintendo Land.
I was embarrassed that day.
It wasn't the first Nintendo E3 that embarrassed me. I've never been, but I watched the is it Cammy Dunaway or something? She talked about her snowboarding injury for about 20 minutes. That was painful.
Yeah. E3 2008. E3 2008 was a magical place for everybody except for Nintendo fans.
Was it the year that we also got the Wii Music?
Yes, we got the infamy that was Referee Drums.
No, I don't want to go onto this. I don't want to go off in this direction, but I hear that apparently Ravi Drums performed at Trump's inauguration yesterday.
He did. There was footage.
Make what you will of that.
He did.
Make what you will of that. I'm not going any further, but
he freaking did.
I'm wondering now how easy it'd be for me to hire him. Maybe if I ever get married or something, relive E3's gone by. He was probably, let's be honest though, he was probably the best part of Wii Music. He's the bit everyone remembers. So.
Well, Wii Music was actually kind of a decent game. I like playing it, but the presentation was terrible.
Yeah, I think I think almost a big issue with it was it was almost. I feel like they thought it was better than it was. They were selling it as something a lot more sophisticated and complicated than it was. But there's a really, really good article in the latest issue of Kill Screen magazine, which is a kind of indie game focused games magazine from America, which really kind of looks at it in retrospect and breaks it down. So if you've got any way of reading that, I'd really highly recommend it.
Yeah, overall, I would say that I would give this presentation about a B minus, just because I think that it could have been tighter. I think it
like an 8 to 7.5 seems about right.
Yeah.
You know what? It had its flaws, but it got me excited for the thing. So, I'll give it that.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I think they should have just not even mentioned was the online services announcement. I think they would have been better just avoiding that.
I thought that even stuff like that, it felt kind of weird for them to deliberately or specifically talk about things like region locking. It felt almost a little bit forced. These are the kind of things I expect in a kind of press release an hour afterwards.
I think it was showing goodwill that they actually talked about region lock. I think they did a good job, saying that look, we understand the demand for this. We understand that we did this with Wii U and 3DS. We're not going to do this with Wii U. And then later they talked about it more, saying you can make multiple accounts from multiple regions, which is even better.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I think that's something that should have mentioned during the presentation as well, that you have freedom about what you want to do with your system, which I think is a way more important factor.
That shows a little bit of progression on Nintendo's front, something they've been a little bit backwards about in recent times. And I think that was definitely one for the fans. You could argue bits of the presentation were probably, as with any kind of big game corporation kind of presentation, bits of it for the investors more than the fans. And, their reaction is a whole other topic. So.
The online services announcement is where I go, okay, there are games that you definitely want to play online. And I'm not going to argue that you don't want to play Splatoon, Smash Brothers, or what have you for a long duration of time. There are a couple of things that I want to mention here, though. Nintendo was the only one who was holding out for free online, and I understand that they want to go with this, but it does make online something exclusive for an amount of people that are willing to pay for it. Secondly, the incentives that currently are offering on their website, and maybe that list will change later down the line, I think it's not a good list. I feel that if Nintendo really wants to do this and push this hard, they need to do this right in the first try. And I feel that, for example, allowing you to download one VC game and then taking it back at the end of the month feels like such a slap into the face, in the face, because you have a wealth of content you're constantly sitting on, a wealth of old or games that you could be selling us for way more than another slew of NES and SNES games. Instead, you opt to give us a game, then take it back, and then maybe force us to buy it if we still liked it.
Yeah, it's like a rental.
Yeah, and I feel that if you're gonna do that, offer us more than just one game. Like, even at that, do us something in that regard. We still are here to support you and give you money for your online services, and even like the smaller things of like putting stuff together in a mobile phone app is also like a really weird way of handling it, and I don't think that is worth the premium price they currently are asking for. Um, and I'm not trying to argue that Xbox and PlayStation do it better. Well, they do, but it's an argument that stands on its own, really. I don't really see the value proposition of Nintendo's online paid service there yet, and they need to showcase us that it's worth paying for.
I think in terms of looking at the value, there are two things to take into account. Nintendo's online track record is not great. Let's be honest.
That's why
on the
I'm
Wii,
more
it was a
worried
new
than I
service.
should be.
I think that it improved with the Wii U, but there were still definite flaws. And people are genuinely annoyed about the lack of things like voice chat, and their approach to it this time around it leaves you with concerns. But I think the second thing they have to consider is, regardless of the actual value of these packages, people have come to expect they've come to expect something from paid online, from PS Plus and from Xbox Live Gold, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's
and
what it's
regardless
called,
of the
yeah.
actual value of those services, Nintendo essentially have to match what those services do, because people will pay money for them. And if Nintendo suddenly say, okay, here's what we want you to pay the same amount of money, but we're offering you less, people are going to say, why should I go with that when I could go elsewhere? But then I suppose at the end of the day, if I wanted to play Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart with either of you, I'd have to pay, and it's as simple as that. And I think it's going to be an inevitability that whilst it's something it's going to be hard to swallow after a couple of generations of free online, it's just a kind of inevitability, and there's really, unless there's a huge backlash, I'm not sure if anything can be done.
Yeah, but they still need to offer us something for giving us that premium of that privilege of playing online. Yeah. And I feel that what they're currently offering is not good.
See, my thing is, like, why announce it now if they're unwilling to give all the details to it? Because we don't even know the price of it. We don't know what exactly we're getting. Like, the website says that there might be discounts. There might be one free title that's updated with online play.
There might be. This is it. So there's a lot of mights. And I think this is a very Nintendo thing, keeping it vague, saying we'll talk about this more at a later date. We're still waiting on that later date, and it will come. But to announce now, to say at this point the online is going to be paid, and then not give the details, of course that's going to cause a backlash.
Yeah, I feel like it's inviting fans to invent the rest of the story, and I think that's a terrible move on Nintendo's part, because fans are going to assume the worst. Because, like you guys said, the online hasn't been superb with Nintendo in the past couple generations, and having the voice chat and the party all in the mobile app might not be the best idea.
It might not. I think, obviously, we don't know for sure how it's going to be executed. It could be really good. It could be great. And I think in terms of the app, looking at their past kind of mobile output, which is obviously quite minimal at the moment, there is a Nintendo level of quality there. And I think that is the thing you can expect from everything they do. It's going to have the sheen. It's like things like UIs. What other company puts background music on their UIs? This is the little Nintendo things, and you can expect this. But it's about whether or not it's actually something that is needed. Because, if I was playing Mario Kart and I wanted to talk to someone whilst I was playing it, let's be honest, you just open Skype or you open Discord or something like that, and it suggests perhaps that Nintendo aren't fully aware of the way things work at the moment. Maybe this is specifically in the West. And it also, to me, suggests that maybe now that DNA are involved, is it DNA, is that how you pronounce it, are involved in their kind of online structure, I'm almost wondering if they're implementing things that they can work on for their own benefit that maybe Nintendo aren't so aware about, to kind of give them a role as a company in developing these services, if that makes sense.
And another thing, another aspect that I'm surprised by is that they really haven't talked or really shown this in a video like proper. The UI of the system, talked about the eShop, what they're going to do, for example, a virtual console. There are a lot of variables there that they haven't talked about, and that's worrying for a system that's about 6 weeks away.
It is, definitely. I think, I'm the kind of the general rumbling seems to be that people are expecting at least one more Nintendo Direct, maybe next month or before it launches. And we've had some real kind of slim glimpses of the UI. And whilst I thought it looked nice, I thought it looked very clean, quite minimalist. There was something about it that almost felt a little bit unfinished, like it was just a prototype. It could have been a mock-up.
For sure.
And then people are already looking at the specifics. There's no browser icon there. People are starting to get worried. And this is like you were saying, Push, Nintendo, they're giving you a bit of information and then giving you months to speculate and worry and get angry. And
the thing is, in this
dangerous
scenario, especially with the console launch coming up, there is no month's time to do this. There's a month and a half. And they need to realize that what they are presenting us is not complete, especially when it again comes to eShop UI and what else have you with the system. And the longer they wait, how more worried like people become. And I don't really want another Wii U situation on our hands here.
Yeah, it kind of invites a slow progress.
Yeah,
like a slow adaptation rate, because people aren't gonna feel confident in the hardware to purchase it.
We need to see every single aspect before this thing launches, and I hope they do that soon.
For the UI, I do like how it is minimalistic, but I do agree that it does look a little bit unfinished. Like there's a little bit things here and there missing, but maybe that's because they actually haven't shown it properly.
Haven't shown it in motion yet. We've seen a lot of kind of flat images, and then there was that image that came out the other day from, was it Nicholas? Which I don't know if they got rid of that pretty quickly, and that showed different colors and themes.
They likely posted something that they shouldn't have,
and got a slap on the wrist from Nintendo afterwards. Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be interesting.
They also had a bunch of their games, different games on the Switch.
Yeah.
Not just Binding of Isaac. They had 1001 Spikes, Cave Story.
It seems like it was deliberate, but obviously maybe that was, even something like that. The fact that, let's theoretically say they were told to delete that because it showed a different colored UI. Why is that something we can't see at this point? The system's weeks away, but we don't know. We don't know the specifics. As usual with Nintendo, we don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. So
yeah, I feel that Nintendo needs to give us an update on what exactly is up with all of this stuff. But it's not knowing like anything like super worries me, and it's going to be more annoying by the fact that we don't even know if there's a virtual console at launch, or even if there's going to be eShop games at launch.
Of course, with the 3DS, we had to wait quite a bit.
With
I don't remember if the
Wii U had like 5, but we only knew them like 1 day before the system launched.
Mm-hmm. The most important thing is we need to know is what is the background music going to be for the eShop. That's what I'm waiting on with bated breath. I'm not joking. I actually, because I know they're going to change it about 5 times across the course of its lifespan. So, they've got a lot to top. That's one thing that they seem to be consistent with. It's having good shop music.
Yeah, but currently it's also more important that we actually know what is up with everything.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. It's
so they actually have an
weird
online infrastructure too.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't detailed like how friends will work, how they haven't confirmed or denied if achievements or some sort of goals will be available in games.
I think they have discussed. Am I right in thinking that Reggie said that friend codes are now not going to be a thing anymore?
Yeah, they said friend codes, but like, how will you add friends? Is that only through the app?
Is it going to be? Yeah, it could be connected to My Nintendo or social media, like with Mario, for example, or Miitomo. I could see them easily taking an approach like that.
Yeah, but with My Nintendo, you still have to add friends per app or per game, that you do
True.
on mobile. So there's nothing on the system that indicates that too, and that worries me.
That's true.
Yeah, so it might be like individual friends list. So, like if we want to play Splatoon together and then we want to play Smash, we got to make sure that we re-add each other.
As long as it isn't on a game-by-game basis, that would be really unfortunate. I think if they took that approach again, because I remember with Smash Brothers Brawl, that was what you had to do. You had to add every you added people per game.
That sounds really dumb, honestly. I don't think they will do that, but that sounds already really dumb. And
yeah, I mean, I
even
guess
less
see Nintendo doing
even less worth the online fee.
Yeah, it makes like you said, it makes the online even more laughable.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought about that was interesting about the online that I don't think got a lot of coverage from sites is that at least in the Japanese version, it says that they can use NES, SNES, and etc.
Okay, so they're
not exclusive
keeping it
to
vague.
NES and SNES.
In some ways, that makes me hopeful because I think that in terms of the Virtual Console, this kind of online tie-in, promotional thing, there is, it's very easy to look at it and think, okay, great, so we're going to get 30 days of Wrecking Crew and Urban Champion, and all those.
I look forward to 30 days of Wrecking Crew. Thank you very much.
I mean, I'm an unashamed fan of Wrecking Crew. Urban Champion, not so much. But let's be honest, most people are not.
Hey, everybody who have played 3D Urban Champion anyway. Their ultimate version of Urban Champion.
Of course, well, one extra dimension makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
That'll be an Evo. That's going to be in the Evo lineup, Urban Champion. Mark my words.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But anyway, I digress on that. But I think there's a potential. I've seen some quite optimistic kind of outlooks of what they could do. I've seen people who say that they compare it to like a book club. Everyone spends a month focused on the same game and the discussion that would be generated by that. And there's potential for Nintendo to really capitalize on it and say, okay, this month's all about Urban Champion. Here's an interview with the development team. Here's a video. Here's some behind the scenes stuff. They could do that, and they could actually kind of capitalize on the kind of cultural surround of these games and the kind of love and nostalgia people have for these older games. Do I think they're going to do that? No, no chance. But,
you're building up to something special, and they're like, nope.
No, I don't see it happening. Yeah. I'd love it. So if it did, that'd be excellent. And they've been doing, with the NES Classic. We've been getting these great little interviews on the Nintendo website. This insight, the kind of desperate insight that as someone who writes about Nintendo and who's kind of passionate about the company, that little bit of insight you want into just what's going on inside that company. But I somehow can't see them kind of executing on that, and I am worried that it's going to be kind of everyone play Donkey Kong Jr. for 30 days, and then they're going to just take it away, and it might fall on the fans to pick some of that slack up, but will they? I'm doubtful towards that as well.
I mean, and I write on this point a lot, but honestly, I still think that's the most insulting point. Like, they give us a game and then take it away. It's like, okay, you give us a toy that doesn't hold a lot of value in a lot of things, because honestly, who's going to buy Donkey Kong Jr.? Let's be honest.
It's unlikely. I think that, especially because these are games that they're trying to sell to people again and again. And, there are some games which, they might be quite good. I don't think Donkey Kong Jr. is a bad game. And there are games like Yoshi's Cookie. I can't see people, holding Yoshi's Cookie in the same regard as something like Super Metroid, which people will rebuy.
Yeah, but also, let's be honest, a lot of those, especially black box NES games, no one will exactly buy. So giving them to people to play is like a really good incentive, but then taking them away is like, okay, we don't really have a need to play these ever again. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
The thing is, you could argue that PS Plus does the same. It's kind of giving you games that you don't really want. You wouldn't buy them normally, but they're giving them to you for free. But then again, they're not taking them away after a month.
Yeah, so, I can play them whenever I want, as long as I'm subscribed to PlayStation Plus, which I think is a way better way of handling it.
Yeah, I think one thing that it reminds me a little bit of is when it was the 30th anniversary of the Famicom or the NES, they did that offer, that promotional offer on the Wii U, where it was okay every week or every month or whatever. There's a Famicom or NES game, sorry, for 30p. It was 30p. I think it was 30 cents or 30 yen
40
in
cents
Japan.
everywhere.
That was excellent, and I'm kind of annoyed I didn't buy every single game in that was released just for kind of the sheer the fact that it was so cheap.
You know what wasn't excellent though? It was in 50 hertz in Europe.
Well, that's a whole nother topic we could go on to about the virtual console's quality and the fact that we got kind of screwed over with that. But there was this aspect where everyone's bought Super Metroid or F-Zero for 30p, and suddenly, the Miiverse, the community was alive and people were drawing and posting their scores, and that is what I think Nintendo would do well to encourage. But it doesn't look like
the Miiverse is dead.
Well, the Miiverse is dead as well, and people say, "Oh, the Miiverse is awful. It was just all people posting Star Wars spoilers and crudely drawn penises and stuff." But it was all that. But it was a community. It was a weird, terrifying community. But it was it was there and it was fun.
Honestly, your first description of Miiverse is exactly what Miiverse is these days.
Yeah, I think it's a shame to see some of these social features have been, things like Street Pass have been dropped because they were great ideas, and with more refinement, they could have turned into something really excellent.
Street Pass is more focused on something that's purely a handheld.
That's true. That is true, and I think that could easily come back in the future if they were to do a more dedicated handheld system.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I brought this up yesterday on my Twitter feed, and I got a really mixed response to this. So I also want to ask you guys. I'm sorry that I take over your podcast for a second here, Pushy.
It's okay.
But I think this is a really important question to ask, honestly, and this is about the future of Switch and the future of Nintendo in general. Do you guys think that if the Switch doesn't take off, Nintendo will make another dedicated handheld?
A handheld, yes. Just because I think that's Nintendo's bread and butter.
I think the market's definitely there for it, especially in Japan. As long as it's got Pokemon and Monster Hunter and all of that on it, then they've kind of almost got a guaranteed success in their in the home region, and that would probably be appealing for them. I'm sure they've got ideas about these things. They're probably knowing Nintendo, they're already looking forward.
I definitely think they have something in R&D just in case this goes wrong.
In case the third pillar crumbles, this is it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. If the Switch catches on, the 3DS will probably be phased out. There's still software kind of on the horizon for it, and that's great because it's got a big install base already. But I think another thing to consider is if the Switch does catch on, if it is a success, what does that mean for handheld gaming? Because for so long we've been used to this kind of system where handheld gaming is of a lesser kind of visual, kind of power related quality than home console games. Will that be able to continue because the Switch is you're getting a home console game on the toilet or whatever
And here's the thing: I'm not willing to give my 7-year-old cousin a Switch.
Yeah, I was gonna say
because
that
I don't want them to hold that expensive piece of kit in their hands and then drop it.
I'm worried about myself dropping it.
I think in the ultimate case, like if they are really going all in on Switch at a certain point, I can see that they're making a smaller version or a mini version of the Switch,
or maybe a primarily portable one
that can play it in handheld mode.
Yeah, because I think they need to make a version that would be safe for children.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, dropping them, scratching the screen. There's a lot of potential.
I think that's what it actually where it differs quite kind of majorly from past Nintendo consoles, especially looking at the gamepad. Gamepad's very bulky. A lot of older Nintendo consoles, they feel like a toy. This feels more like a piece of technology. It's very sleek.
Yeah.
It's got this kind of it's a capacitive touchscreen. Is that right? Not resistive.
It's capacitive,
it kind of But then I mean that kind of perhaps shows where they're looking at a different market. They're looking at a kind of more affluent market, perhaps. That's a whole nother topic. There's a lot to break down about this console.
Yeah, honestly, the future of Nintendo will be decided in a year from now. I think we need to see how the first year of Switch will go, and then I think Nintendo will have made their minds up on what to do with the 3DS. Because if the software keeps selling in 2017, I don't think they necessarily have a reason to stop. But I've been wrong before. and next to that, if they are making like a mini version of the Switch or a dedicated handheld, which they might have in R&D, you never know. But like the first task is bringing Switch to market and see how that one does.
Yeah. One thing that I'm kind of worried about is going back to a single screen for handheld.
Yeah, I
True.
agree.
I think that there were a lot of games that made better use of the dual screens than others, but it was a feature that I think people didn't realize. They probably won't realize how good it was until it's taken away. For things like Pokemon, for example, it's just you don't think about it, but having all of that clutter off of the kind of battlefield.
Even Sun and Moon, they didn't really use the second screen that well.
Yeah, I haven't played that personally.
That's kind of why I believe in Pokemon Stars.
I absolutely believe in that Pokemon Stars is a thing, and it's also their way of testing the waters of making maybe a handheld only version of Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think those will be the games that really will help to kind of dictate whether this is a kind of. I mean, they're marketing it as a home console system. A lot of people argue that it should be marketed as a handheld, but it will be Pokemon, Monster Hunter, Dragon Quest. A lot of these kind of staple handheld franchises to an extent. Those will be the games that really, I think, will kind of write out the future for this console.
Yeah, they will decide if it's going to be Switch or another dedicated handheld.
Yeah, definitely. Well, going on that, what do you think about the price tag? It's about $299 in US dollars, I should say.
I think that's.
Do you think that's a fair price?
I think that's okay. I would have liked $250, but I'm okay with $300.
Mm-hmm. Same here. Yeah, I think it's clear that there's in terms of technology, it's probably worth that price tag. I think that it feels like a piece of technology, and people will pay that much for technology that has doesn't have all that functionality. It's about whether or not it will be used. I think is that will determine whether you're getting your money's worth, essentially.
And then after that, people have complained about the accessories being too expensive, like the Switch Pro controller being about $70 US.
I don't see it. I don't necessarily see the Pro controller, honestly, because what of the stuff they build in, it's like a 10 or more expensive than Xbox One or PlayStation 4 controllers. And for the stuff that's in it, I feel that the price is totally justified. If you're talking to me about the dock separately for $90, then we have a conversation, my friend. Because $90 for a dock is really outrageous.
Well, yeah, considering we're not entirely sure what's in that thing, it could just be a piece of plastic with a kind of HDMI in. The thing for me, the accessory that stood out, if you can call it an accessory, that stood out as being too much money is the power adapter, the AC adapter. Now, I'm not sure what the kind of normal price for kind of tech stuff is. My only experience of buying AC adapters is from Apple, and that's basically daylight robbery. I think look the console comes with a power adapter in the box, and my assumption is that's going to be either plugged into the wall by your TV where the dock is, or plugged into the Switch console directly. Is that right? It uses USB-C.
Yeah. So basically, you can buy any USB-C charger. So
that actually to me kind of makes me think. Why are Nintendo selling it for so much when I can just go and buy any cable? I could go and buy one from the pound shop and it would probably catch fire and kill me. But it's not 25 quid. The Joy-Con are very expensive as well.
This is Nintendo. They're still selling a Class 4 32 GB SD card on their online shop for €45.
Their own branded stuff. And I think there's actually, in the Wii era, there was a casual audience who would buy those kind of things because there was a kind of level of consumer faith and trust in saying, okay, this has got the Wii logo on it, this has got Nintendo's seal of quality, so I know that it's going to work with my system. I don't have to think about it. But now, it's kind of everything's a bit more modular. The fact that you could just use any kind of USB adapter to charge the system. I mean, even looking at the NES Classic, which just had a USB kind of charger, you could plug that into a computer or something. It shows that they've obviously changed their thinking to some extent.
I'm glad that they moved the power adapter to a USB-C because I think it's far more useful than just a regular old plug.
Yeah. Also, I noticed that at first glance I was kind of worried because you would do that at the bottom, so there's not really a groove to hold that wire in, but apparently it is, because if you look at the back of the system in official pictures, there is a groove to put the USB-C thing in there, so you can still keep playing it with the tabletop mode.
Okay.
All right. I heard some people talking about needing to buy kind of these sort of right angle adapters for cables and things like that to make it fit there. But
Yeah, there's definitely a groove in the back that allows you to plug it there.
no, that's good.
But yeah, I agree with Don about the Joy-Con controllers. I think they are a pretty good value just because you get two of them, even though you technically need two of them for one game in some cases. But there are some cases where they will be two controllers.
I was more talking about the Pro Controller, but the Joy-Cons apply to that situation too.
I think the technology in there and what you're getting for your money physically makes them worth the price. But the value ultimately will come in how they are used, and whether it was worth putting, upping the price to put all that tech in. But I suppose that's more of a developer issue than Nintendo's own kind of hardware pricing.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and then like Don said, the dock is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And like Ollie said, we don't know what's in it yet, fully 100%.
There's well, we know what's in it. There's a USB-C placement where you can hook it up directly to the dock and then send it from a HDMI connection to a television, and there's the C adapter, and that's about your lot. And two USB slots, but that's everything.
For hard drives and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, it's getting the system and getting everything set up is going to be quite expensive, but I think that's not that unusual for new technology.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's not.
But speaking about that, pre-orders, they're basically sold out everywhere. Not really big surprise.
Is that so? I was still able to, because I know that I will get one from Nintendo, but I did one as a backup just in case, and I was still able to pre-order it a day ago.
Okay, at least in Japan, when I tried pre-ordering this morning on Amazon.co.jp, it said it was sold out.
Okay,
within 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was the number I heard. Yeah, it seems like it's sold out pretty quickly in the UK. I pre-ordered one from Amazon UK, basically a couple of minutes after they went up for pre-order, and I noticed that the grey ones were sold out after maybe. I don't want to give an exact number. I feel like it was maybe about half an hour or an hour, but it could be longer. Because if I'm totally honest, I woke up, pre-ordered it, and then went back to sleep. But because I'd woken up earlier for the presentation. That was actually going very quickly back to the presentation. The timing, I wasn't too keen on that at all. 3 a.m. start on my day off, not great, but
It was also 1 p.m. in Japan, which is just in the middle of the day.
It was like 5 a.m. here, which is fine.
The things that we do for Nintendo, This is it. The sacrifices we make.
The last time I messaged Don, it was like 5 a.m. his time, and he was still awake.
I'm 19. I have to. I'm a growing boy. I've got to sleep all the time. That's my thing. So that's my excuse. Now I'm looking lazy because you guys are all, or Don at least is leaping up for his conference at 5 a.m. But still, that's not Nintendo's fault. That's my fault.
I'm usually awake until 2 a.m., 2 or 3 a.m. But that's just because I work second shift, so I can stay awake late and then sleep into the morning.
No.
Anyway,
getting very personal.
I think the pre-orders sold out in America though, or at least some of them did.
In major parts, yeah. In Europe, I see different things because the price that retailers are setting in Europe seems also higher than everywhere else.
£270 here, or £269.99. I think. I don't know about in Germany. How many euros?
I'm talking euros, not necessarily in pounds. Because
Yeah,
pounds
sure.
It seems okay. In Europe, it seems between 300 or 350, which really varies over the place.
I didn't know that. Bloody hell. Yeah, that's a little. It's tough to swallow, maybe. But
I had to pre-order my backup for 320. So.
Oh wow.
What about the price of the games, though? How are they in kind of continental Europe?
So, One to Switch and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is €55. Breath of the Wild is €60.
Okay, so it kind of lines up pretty close to the UK. So Breath of the Wild went up at 60. Mario Kart was 50. So that's now dropped by £10. So now it's $49.99 for Breath of the Wild. Mario Kart is 45. Once you switch, it's gone down to 32. And I think that was the Amazon. That's Amazon's prices. I'm not sure about Nintendo. I mean, at the moment, I tweeted about this yesterday and got quite a kind of mixed response. But Amazon have actually got the Pro Controller up for $99.99 at the moment, and I don't know if that's a mistake or not.
Seriously,
but it's a little bit,
that definitely seems like a mistake because in Europe it's €70.
Yeah, so I've seen it for 65 or 70. So I'm pretty sure it's inconsistent with Nintendo's kind of pricing. I think it's probably a mistake.
But I do agree that the AC adapter is way overpriced because here it's €35 and it's basically like a brick with a USB-C attached to it.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's kind of their proprietary. I mean, I guess it's a step up from their kind of proprietary stuff that we've had. I mean, my with the Wii U,
it's not even a separate cable.
It's attached. Is it fixed to the? It's fixed to the plug,
which is stupid.
Yeah. Oh well, it's got the Nintendo seal of quality on it. That's what you're paying for.
Yeah. So. Basically, you can buy a USB-C cable and maybe a power plug. Or a power.
Yeah,
bank.
Or you could plug it into a phone kind of a power. You could get USB 2 to USB 3 or USB C or whatever it is. I mean, I'm glad that they're not using their own kind of proprietary stuff because with the Wii U, I think about a month after it came out, my cat had chewed through the charging cable for the gamepad, and Nintendo basically refused to sell me a replacement. They claimed they had one on the market. They didn't at the time, so I was forced to buy a third-party one, which meant I had to buy some huge kind of ugly charging dock thing, which looked like something out of Doctor Who. Just to get this cable. So it's nice to be able to know that basically you can just buy any cable on the market. Really, gives you a bit more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the prices are kind of all over the place, especially in both the UK and Europe.
I think I was talking with you, Ollie, when you said that UK is not determined by Nintendo; it's kind of determined by.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's actually for the whole of Europe. I don't know if it's some kind of EU regulation or anything to do with that, but I think they're not allowed to, or they don't set the prices. They leave it up to the retailers, and it's based on the wholesale price of how much the retailers are paying Nintendo to buy the units from them. And it means that there's often quite a bit of variation compared to the rest of the world. The game pricing is definitely it's hard to swallow because we've had two generations here, at least in the UK, where for the DS and the Wii, a kind of brand new Nintendo first party game, you're probably looking at £30. That maybe went up to 40, 45 at the very kind of top for Wii U and 3DS.
Right,
actually, 3DS is actually that you get. People. I heard from people who bought Splatoon for 25 at launch. It was definitely a lot more generous. And I'm not doubting the quality of the software, but you could argue that if you were to go and buy a brand new AAA game on the PSN store or something, you're probably looking at about £50 or £60. But it's such a sharp kind of step up. I think it's going to affect some people. For me as a student, you can't really be lavish. I can't be going and buying kind of 3 games on launch day now. I probably wouldn't have done that anyway. But it means that for some people Zelda's probably going to be it. They're going to have to settle for Zelda, and if they're buying the collector's edition, even more so.
For sure, I agree.
Yeah. For me, let's talk a little bit about the launch lineup. For me, I think the launch day, I'm getting Breath of the Wild. I'm not sure about Binding of Isaac because I'm not sure about its Japan release yet. And then Super Bomberman R.
What did you know about the Japan release?
Binding of Isaac Afterbirth.
Oh, that's definitely.
I don't know if it's gonna.
That's definitely not coming to the Japanese launch.
Yeah. I know in Japan they finally released it on the 3DS eShop.
It took a while for them to do that in basically everywhere, didn't it? I heard there's some issues with Nintendo.
To be fair, Japan is getting Puyo Puyo Tetris at launch, so
yeah, that's true.
There is a bit of regional variation, I think, isn't there? There are a couple of games that come in out in the States that we're not getting in Europe.
And I will specifically make a Japanese account to download Puyo Puyo Tetris day one on my system.
Yeah.
It would just be Zelda for me, I think. Maybe possibly downloading something like Snipper Clips.
Snipper Clips is not coming on launch day though. So.
Isn't it? Yeah, right. I thought I was okay. Is that a launch window or first month?
It's coming in March, but not on launch day.
Yeah.
For me, it's gonna be I have to cover this launch anyway. So likely everything that comes out in the European American launch. For Japan, I'm not required to do anything.
Hmm.
But I will likely cover, because I already covered the Wii U and 3DS games. I will likely cover Puyo Puyo Tetris because I put like 50 hours into the Japanese release of that game. Um, what else is coming out on launch day in Japan? Disgaea 5, but I kind of want to wait until the Western release.
Yeah, fair enough.
Then you have Dragon Quest Heroes 1 2. I will likely download that because I already played it on PlayStation 4, so I know the story, but I kind of want to play it already because I love those type of games.
Good to have on the go, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's going to be great on the go. And then there's also I Am Setsuna at launch in Japan, which I'm not sure if I want to play that in Japanese. I already played it in English, but I could. So I will see how I feel then at launch day. And then there's of course the insequential game for the Switch for the launch at every single Japanese launch in Japan, Nobunaga's Ambition.
Yeah,
that's there, isn't it? It's got am I right in thinking it's got some excessively long title?
Yeah,
that makes
it's
it sound like it is. I think I made me when I first heard it. It's like something like Sphere of Influence with additional war pack or something. It sounds like it should be on the Nintendo 64 DD with a name like that, like talking about extra packs and stuff. But I don't know. Those are the kind of games. The big surprise is there's no Rayman 2 at launch because that seems to be on everything under the sun. So.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, also Nobunaga's Ambition is like 100 euros or dollars translated from 9,800 yen plus tax, so I'm not sure if I want that regardless. Well, everything else actually seems appealing, so like there are more variables at the Japanese launch, I feel, but in general, considering you can download everything on a single system, it will be a good amount of stuff to have.
Yeah, I'm excited to have multiple accounts and finally access the different regions.
That would be great.
Sure,
especially because you just get these little eShop titles that don't make it over here. And with 3DS, unless you have had two systems, you miss out on all that stuff. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how they handle buying credit and stuff. I guess people will just go to retailers that sell like Japanese kind of
point cards,
voucher codes and stuff like that. One thing I'd quite like to see is I'd really like to see Nintendo increase the amount of payment options on the eShop. I kind of feel like we really should have things like PayPal available now. And this is partially a personal thing because I'm blocked from using any kind of payment method on the eShop. I have to buy vouchers because I got a refund once and it's killing me. I hate it. There have been times where I've been 10p short for a game. I've had to go and buy a £15 voucher to buy it. So I'm hoping they'll kind of flesh out some of these small things that people, I guess, won't really be thinking about now, but once the system's out, will become more important.
Yeah, Japan they added the option to use the IC cards.
The prepaid kind of is that with the NFC, right?
Like the NFC cards, yeah.
So they could definitely carry that on. The technology's all there, so
I can use the same card that I use for my train on my 3DS.
Right. I think this is also like this feels kind of generic to say, but I'm also really looking forward to having Minecraft on that system.
Not so much for 50 quid. I've got to be honest. I personally wouldn't buy it, but I just worry that comparing it to we're looking at an audience who aren't going to look at it and say, look at the major difference between the console and the mobile versions. But for 50 quid compared to pocket change, 99p or whatever on a phone, there's going to be. I worry about how well that will do.
I think it's great to have a full functional version of that game on the go with me.
Definitely, of course, yeah. If you can appreciate the difference, then the benefits are clear. And I think it is Minecraft, so it's going to be popular, I'm sure.
There's going to be stuff that I definitely want to play within the first year for sure. And it for me, like March doesn't seem as dire as some people make it out to be, especially if like things like Shinnen's Fast RMX or I Am Setsuna or Snipper Clips all make March, so there's still a good amount of variables in that month. Then you have April with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then spring comes around, and whatever comes then out. You have to hope and see that like that lineup will be pretty good in comparison to the lineup this summer. Considering there's a whole bunch of stuff they have lined up, but it's also important that they keep pushing out games until like the latter half of the year when the big hitters come out. But yeah, there's still stuff that I definitely want to play like in the first couple of months. It might not be as much as I would hope, but the bigger stuff will get there eventually.
Yeah. For me, I'm not that excited about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, me
just because
neither.
I own the Wii U version. I have the DLC. So for me, I see Zelda, Bomberman, Snipperclips has my eye, Splatoon 2, ARMS, and then after that, basically Mario Odyssey. Oh, Sonic Mania, I guess. Yeah, Sonic Mania is also in spring.
I will
Could
play
be.
also the heck out of Shovel Knight on my Switch.
I think it could definitely be a good launch for indie developers because you've got
Yeah.
Zelda. You know, people will. I think Zelda is definitely going to be probably the most popular launch title. It's almost again they're selling the whole system on. But the fact that people might they'll play that for a month and they might get bored after a whole month. It's possible, and then they'll look to other games, and a lot of the offerings are smaller indie games. Might encourage them to pick them up when otherwise they wouldn't. And I think it was the developer of is it a Rusty Pup? I'm not too familiar with the game,
Rusty
but he
Pup,
actually
yeah.
said, the lack of software at launch as an indie developer is quite appealing to them.
Yes, I tweeted that
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's where I saw it. Yeah,
But it's pretty important that we get to know the games that will be eShop wise there as well. We only know Binding of Isaac, which is a really good game, but there needs to be more to sustain like people at launch.
Oh yeah. I think their strategy of using ports to help fill in the gaps, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I think that's a good strategy. But for people the hardcore gamers, they might not be as appealing.
for people who missed out on the Wii U, though, I think it's a good strategy.
Yeah, for the people that missed out the Wii U, it's perfect.
I don't really care. I'm gonna play the heck out of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because of A, battle mode, and B, handheld mode.
Mm-hmm.
The handheld will be definitely a big draw.
Totally okay.
Just to be able to take a game of that quality on the go, that's something special. That's what the Switch has got over the competition. It's the that real clear difference between this and past handheld systems. You are actually playing a console game, on a portable device, and nothing kind of mainstream has really done that yet. I don't think. So.
Okay. Well, do you guys have any closing thoughts before you start wrapping this up?
My closing thoughts really on the Nintendo Switch is that I'm really looking forward to it. All the software might not be there directly from launch day, but I think that with stuff like Zelda and Puyo Puyo Tetris, my favorite, and all of the other stuff that's coming out in the months to follow, I will still have enough to play until like the latter half of the year when the big hitters come out. And I'm especially looking forward to Splatoon, Snipper Clips, Super Mario Odyssey, obviously. So I feel that will be good eventually, and where Nintendo will go from here depends on the success of its first year.
Okay, how about Ollie?
Yeah, no, I think kind of Dan hit the nail on the head. Really, I think there's a lot of promise in the hardware, and I think there's a lot that will appeal to people. The main draw, the main gimmick, the portability seems really well executed. Pretty much as good as it is in all the trailers. In terms of software, is it the best launch lineup that Nintendo have ever had? No, probably not. I don't think anyone should be really surprised at that. But the first year looks very promising. We've got kind of Splatoon 2 and ARMS to look forward to as kind of, Splatoon's still relatively young and ARMS being a brand new IP. Mario at the end of the year. I think that'll be a point where a lot of people will get on board with the console. That way you've already got a pretty kind of solid lineup of software. And then there's stuff on the horizon as well, like Xenoblade, Fire Emblem we've just had announced as well, which I'm sure a lot of people will buy the system for. So I just think there's a lot of promise. I hope it catches on.
Yeah, we also don't need to underplay the fact that a lot of people didn't own the Wii U, so a lot of people will also be looking maybe at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and thinking I want to play that.
Yeah,
and
because
they absolutely should, because Mario Kart 8 is the best Mario Kart game
And that together with Zelda
ever.
is already a good solid
Yeah.
proposition.
it's kind of
and
it's
like a new
quality, it's
thing.
first party quality all across the board, and I think that's
Yeah.
it will also be interesting to see, can they keep that up beyond the first year, because there are still
Yeah.
franchises we've heard nothing from, and we've heard rumblings about Smash Bros, about Pikmin. You know, it's exciting actually knowing that these games are going to be here in the first year, and that there aren't going to be kind of huge periods where we're thinking there's nothing coming. What's coming? You know, waiting for that Nintendo Direct.
Absolutely. We need to know a lot more software beyond like the first couple of months and see how it carries through the roster. I hope we'll see franchises like Pokemon, which has been heavily rumored, and maybe an Animal Crossing game or what have you, because the more games there are, the better it is for us Nintendo fans in general.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to
definitely.
consolidate handheld and home console kind of franchises in one place, and all the kind of development effort, that is, that's a winning strategy. They've really got to capitalize on it, though. You know, they've got to put a big push to get everything they possibly can on this console, so that they can attract kind of customers and fans of all these different franchises who, you know, before would have only bought a handheld or a home console based on what they were after. And in terms of the casual market, it's about pushing that technology that's in there, pushing the technology in the Joy-Con and the portable aspect, and actually making software that makes use of it. And I think that'll be the kind of winning ticket for them.
I think, like you guys said, I think Nintendo's trying to run a long marathon, and that they're looking long term and not short term with this launch. And we'll see if they can pick up steam and keep the race going. Okay, so Don, where can people find you?
You can find me at a whole bunch of places. You can find me on Twitter, which is at Nintendan, as NINTNDAAN. You can do the same on YouTube with the same with the one at the end. Go Nintendo, Nintendo Volt Report, NF Magazine, and a whole bunch more.
Basically, if you read Nintendo stuff, you probably know them. Okay, and Ollie?
The best place to find me is minusworld.co.uk. That's where I'm putting out all my writing, all my content. Also on Twitter at minusworld. We're on Facebook, minusworldvg. We're on all the other stuff, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram. If you go to minusworld.co.uk, you can find that all.
Okay, and I'm Push Dustin. You can look up Push Dustin on Google, and you'll find me. And you can follow Source Gaming by looking up All Source Gaming on Twitter. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, thanks very much.
No worries.